The situation in Europe keeps deteriorating. France's government has collapsed, throwing the EU's second-largest economy into chaos. December's political turmoil in France exposed the cracks in European unity once again. Meanwhile, Germany is under immense strain, with Volkswagen employees striking en masse. In my opinion, we're already in crisis mode. The old model that sustained Europe is no longer viable. Sticking to the traditional playbook will leave us out of the game entirely. There's no question. The EU's economic framework is struggling to survive, and it's falling behind the US and China. Had Europe's economy grown at the same pace as America's over the past 20 years, the EU could have seen an additional 3 trillion euros in annual income. That's roughly equivalent to adding the GDP of France to the economy every year. Europe urgently needs a digital-era economy, one that can rival the companies of the US and China. Without such transformation, the region risks losing the ability to safeguard itself in a world where security is no longer guaranteed. It's a tense period globally, with Europe right at the center. This is a pivotal figure in global economics. Back in September, he issued a stark warning. Mario Draghi described the European economy as fragile, alarmingly so. Today, he will deliver his much-anticipated report on what Europe must do to regain its edge. Draghi, a highly esteemed economist and former European Central Bank president, guided Europe through some of its toughest challenges. He also led Italy through turbulent times. Many turned to him in moments of crisis. His latest report emphasizes that while the US and China are advancing rapidly, Europe must invest hundreds of billions more annually just to compete, and possibly to survive. The Draghi Plan sparked much-needed discussions, but challenges abound. There's Trump, there's China, there's the war in Ukraine and the escalating conflict in the Middle East. Draghi's conclusion? Europe is stuck. Without change, the continent could shrink to less than 10% of global GDP by 2050, cementing a much smaller role in the global economy. Improving productivity is one solution. It's not about making people work longer hours, it's about creating more value with the same effort. To illustrate this, let's look at one of Europe's most iconic industries, Italy's olive oil sector. This billion-euro business has received millions in EU pandemic aid to help boost its output and reduce Italy's towering debt. Some farmers used the funds to modernize their equipment. Boosting productivity is one of the best ways to grow an economy. But while olives are valuable, they can't compare to the productivity gains from developing semiconductors or solar panels, areas the US and China began prioritizing years ago. Europe has failed to integrate frontier technologies into its economy to raise incomes and efficiency. Falling behind has left the region poorer and less productive. This productivity gap is why the EU's economy is now 18% smaller than it might have been, equating to a staggering 3 trillion euro shortfall. One problem is Europe's lack of investment in transformative startups. Technologies at the cutting edge aren't being translated into new businesses. Unlike the US or even China, Europe lacks major success stories in tech. Venture capital, a key driver of global innovation, is notably underdeveloped here. Another challenge is regulation. Europe values its regulatory frameworks, often calling them blueprints for the world. While regulation can be beneficial, the heavy emphasis on rules has stifled growth. Globally, Europe lags behind. While billions may sound like a lot, the tech world operates in trillions. Take the top US tech giants. If their combined valuation were a country, it would rank as the third largest economy after the US and China. Europe is waking up to the fact that it lacks these digital powerhouses. The shift to a digital economy is affecting industries across the board, including Germany's automotive sector. Electric vehicles are a product of the digital era, and Volkswagen is at the center of this difficult transition. Once Europe's industrial champion, it now faces factory closures and potential layoffs affecting tens of thousands. Germany's struggle mirrors broader challenges in Europe's economy. Across the border, France is grappling with high debt and fiscal imbalances. Its deficit far exceeds EU limits, unsettling investors and making French bonds riskier. This trend reached its worst point since 2012, during the last European debt crisis, compounding France's financial woes. Until France resolves its political gridlock, economic recovery seems unlikely. Germany, meanwhile, faces a labor shortage that threatens its status as Europe's manufacturing powerhouse. These two countries are the EU's economic linchpins. Without them thriving, the rest of Europe struggles. This is the fractured landscape Mario Draghi warned about. Europe relies too heavily on traditional industries, is slow to adopt new technologies, and lacks unity in pursuing bold reforms. Individual nations are often more focused on protecting their own interests than advancing the EU as a whole. What's next? Where should we look for signs of progress or decline? The euro's value against the dollar serves as a key indicator. When the euro approaches parity, it signals that Europe is losing its global economic influence. A weaker euro emboldens populists who question the EU's viability, raising the faint but real specter of another Brexit-like event. Germany's right-wing AfD party, for example, plans to campaign for an exit from the euro. But experts like Draghi stress that change, while challenging, is possible. Europe's strengths in engineering, cars, machines, robots, could still position it to lead in high-quality technological manufacturing. Northern Italy, southern Germany, and Switzerland remain hubs of precision craftsmanship. These skills may yet prove pivotal for Europe's future in the global economy.